Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video in the Kotlin series. In this video, I'm going to teach you about break and continue. Welcome back everybody. So at this point, we've learned a lot about the control flow statements in Kotlin. We learned about if statements, we learned about when expressions, we learned about for loops, while loops, do while loops. Those are pretty much the main control flow statements that you're going to have to use on a daily basis whenever you're making Kotlin programs. Another one that I want to teach you are jump expressions. There's actually 3 of them, but I'm going to wait before showing you the third one. So the first 2 that we'll learn about is break and continue. Let's start with break, the break statement. This is going to exit the enclosing loop. So anytime you're in a loop and you call break, it's going to break out of that loop. So if we have a list of names here and we want to go through each of the names, so we'll say name and names, and we would just want to print out each of the names. That's really easy. But let's say that if we get to a specific name like Mary, we want to break out of the loop. We want to no longer loop because we've reached someone that we're looking for. So we could control X to cut that, and we could say if name is equal to Mary, then we'll print out, ew, it's Mary. What the hell? And then what we're going to do is break. Otherwise, we're going to do s out name. So the way that this works is we still have a very simple for loop. It's just going to loop through every single name in the names list. So John, Jane, Mary, Mark, Alice. But for each iteration of the loop, it's going to check to see if the name is equal to Mary. If it is equal to Mary, whenever it does reach Mary, if it does exist in the list, it's going to print out you, it's Mary. Oh, I printed out the wrong name. You, it's Mary, what the hell? And then it's going to call break. So what break will do is it'll totally kill this for loop here so that it no longer iterates at all. It'll break out of the loop. That's why it's called break. So there will be no next iteration. There will be no Mark or Alice. Those will not be printed out at all. So if I go ahead and run this to show that to you, let's see what we get. Look at that. So we get John, we get Jane, which are the first 2, but then it's going to reach Mary. It's going to check to see if name is equal to Mary. It does, so it's going to say, ew, it's Mary, what the hell? And then it's going to break out the loop, and therefore the loop is no longer going to iterate for the other items in the list. And so that's exactly how a break works. If for some reason you have a for loop inside of another for loop and you call break within one of those for loops, it'll break out of the closest one. So if I just take this and I control X cut that and I do for X in 1.10, if I just have another for loop and then I put this one back inside of it, what this will do is just run this 10 times, but each time it runs, it's going to break out when it reaches Mary. So this break here only affects this for loop because that's the closest one, okay? But if we had another break for some reason after this, it would break out of this for loop. And a little trick is that if you click the break, it'll highlight the one that it's affecting, okay? So that's how break works, but now we can look at continue, which is very similar. What we can do is replace the break with a continue. Now let's go ahead and run this to see what happens. So now we get John, Jane, ew, it's Mary, what the hell, Mark, and then Alice. So the difference here is that, of course, we're not using break, we're using continue. So what this will do is break out of the current iteration instead of the entire loop. So it'll skip any code that follows the continue and just go to the next iteration of the for loop. That's why it still says Mark and Alice after, because we are continuing, not breaking. So we're just stopping the current iteration of the for loop and going to the next iteration, which will be Mark, and Mark is a valid name, so it'll just print out Mark. And then Alice is a valid name, so it'll just print out Alice. And that's literally it. So if I had to summarize the difference between break and continue, break is whenever you want to totally remove yourself from the entire for loop and not run it at all anymore. And continue is when you want to stop running the current iteration of the loop and just go to the next iteration. And I'll just give you guys one more example of how continue kind of works here. So let's say that we want to make a program that prints out only odd numbers. What we could do is have a for loop, and we could do I in 1.10, so it'll loop 1 through 10, or you can even do 1 through 50. And we want to say if I modulus 2 is equal to 0. So we're checking to see if it's divisible by 2. If it is divisible by 2, then we want to continue. And then after this, we can do s out I. So the way that this will work is, basically it's going to loop 1 through 50. That's pretty simple. You're just using a for loop with a range. For every single number, for every single iteration of that for loop, it's going to check to see if that number is divisible evenly by 2. If it is, it's an even number, so we're going to go ahead and continue, because we want to only print out odd numbers. So if we continue, this means that it's going to stop the current running of this current iteration of this for loop, so it's not going to reach this next piece of code here. If this is an odd number, this will be false, and it won't call continue, so it will run this piece of code here and go to the next iteration afterwards. So hopefully that makes sense. That's just another example of how you can use continue. If for some reason we replace continue with break, and we run this, let's see what happens. There we go. So in this first example, we only get 1 because once it reaches 2, 2 is evenly divisible by 2, so we're going to break out and it's not going to run anymore in the for loop. Something I want to add is that break and continue are not just for for loops, even though that's all the examples I gave you today. That's just because for loops are more commonly used, and therefore they're more commonly used with for loops, but they can also be used with while loops and do while loops as well, so you can play with that if you want to. And that's it. That's all I'm going to show you guys. That's how you can use continue and break statements in Kotlin. And yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. So that's it for this video, everybody. I really hope you learned something new. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to also check the description below for important links to code and other resources, but also really important, join our Discord. We have a big community of over 5,000 programmers, and it's a place where you can find new friends or get help on any code that you're stuck on. If you want to support what I do on this channel, please consider hitting the join button below, and this will allow you to support my channel for as low as $1 a month, but there are different tiers to choose from if you want to. For anyone that becomes a member on my channel, you get a special rank on my Discord server, early access to new videos, and you can just see yourself on the screen right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. Thank you so much. And that's it. Peace.